So, hi everybody, and welcome back to On the Roof. Today we have a wonderful guest. This young girl is doing some real amazing work. She's in the middle of producing, writing, starring in a is it an off-Broadway production that we got going on, or let's say a theater production?
Yeah.
Right.
It's a theater festival. Yep, it's the Front Row Fringe Festival. So it's all off Broadway and Broadway producers that are making it happen.
Right. Well, anyway, let's tell them all who you are. The lovely, ultra multi-talented Holly Block. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you for having me. Um, yeah, so I am Holly. I'm an actor, singer, dancer, based in New York City. Also, currently writer, director, producer, lots of all of that stuff going on. A little overwhelmed. Rehearsals like crazy right now, but all the good stuff. I love being super busy, so I'm doing that right now. I wrote an original musical called Safe and Sound the Musical with one of my best friends and co-creators, Elizabeth Jurgen, who actually just moved here this week from London to really focus on her career and our show. And we're in the process of getting this show up and running over Zoom. So it's been really interesting. This is the first time a theater festival has done productions like this over Zoom. So definitely a learning experience, super cool, and definitely the new generation taking these circumstances by storm.
Yeah, well, not only these circumstances. Let's get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
The premise of this project, it's really deep, really profound. Can you talk a little bit about it and tell us a little bit what it's about?
Yeah, for sure. So, ultimately, the main character, the narrator, Love, she's the embodiment of love. You can almost think of her as like Mother Nature. Takes the audience on a journey, telling the story of these three characters on their journey to finding themselves again. And the way that we do that through the musical is connecting them back to their inner child. So there are younger versions of these characters that are really playful along the whole entire musical, and we deal with circumstances such as suicide prevention and assault and all of these things that life can throw at you. And Love takes you on the journey to realizing if you have love and you always look for the um, positive things in life, you can get through your darkest times. So that's kind of the story. There's so much more to it, but I guess people will just have to buy
You're
tickets.
gonna have to tune in, folks. Keep them
Don't
guessing.
want to give it all away,
No, no,
but
you know. But listen, this is really an important project to you. Well,
yeah,
first of
for
all,
sure.
let me just make full disclosure. I want to just say thank you before we get too serious for a minute. For just giving me some of your time. I know how busy you are, and you already sat down for a lengthy interview that I screwed up.
No,
So, but you were great. And I go, we have to do this again. And due to the timing of your project coming up and everything, and you were kind enough to just come back here. So we'll do something, kind of, quick in a sense, not because your story needs time. And
yeah,
like we did the last time, given time, people will understand why you have such a need and a passion to tell a story like this.
for sure. Yeah,
You know?
definitely. I'll be back.
Yes, yes, no, we will. But in the meantime, I want you to say, like, what is it about this story that you feel so compelled that you are drawn, you have to share this with everyone?
Yeah. Um, like you said, I'm sure we'll go into it again, but just to touch a little bit on it, growing up, I grew up with a severe disability, dyslexia, very, very severe dyslexia. I couldn't read till I was like 12. Um, Theater completely saved me and changed my life. So if I can find a way to connect, changing someone and helping them with the thing that helped and saved me, I'm gonna do it any way I can. I'm gonna figure out how to. And this project is really about that. It's about healing and bringing joy to people and bringing hope to people, and making sure people know that they can reach out and that they're not alone, because I went through that in life, and it's so important to me and to my partner to get that out there as much as you possibly can, especially through art, because art touches people in ways, in
Profoundly,
so
yeah.
many ways, whether it's music or dance or TV or movies. So being able to connect what saved me and do this within this musical is just super important to me. So
Yeah, and the thing that jumped out at me was any proceeds you're going to make, you're going to be donating some money to a suicide prevention. All the healing that we all need. The only thing that you can't heal from is suicide. I mean, well, death, I mean,
of course,
there's no fixing that one,
yeah,
unfortunately. So, like, anytime you can reach people like that before they, decide on, making a permanent solution to a temporary problem, reach out and get some help and say, there is hope. There is help out there.
of course. I mean, you can always go through life with regret, right? But that's the one thing you can't take back. I mean, every day is a new day filled with so many opportunities. It's just up to you to see them and be open to them and open to the possibility of things. And you're absolutely right. It was so important for us to focus on suicide prevention, because it is the one thing that once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
When it happens, it happens. So being able to get to that person um, before it gets that far, with the launch of Safe and Sound and like the announcement that it was a musical, and we launched our website and a GoFundMe that raised money for Born This Way Foundation, which is Lady Gaga's foundation that
Right.
supports mental health and kindness and suicide prevention. So 20% of each donation went to there, and then the rest is helping us produce our show right now. So I'm super thankful for all the people that showed up and wrote these amazing messages. And we did a We Are Love campaign, we called it, where people went online and they shared their stories about how love took them out of a time they were experiencing darkness. And social media was filled with these courageous and brave stories of so many different kinds of people, which is really the mission that we wanted to get across. And we started doing it. So it really, sometimes I'm sitting in these rehearsals and I just like take a moment. I'm like, is this really happening? Like the words I wrote and the story that I wanted to come
Yeah.
across so badly, it's starting to happen in front of my eyes. So I always like thank the cast. I'm like, they're making my dreams come true,
Isn't that
honestly.
a beautiful experience? The first time I decided I wanted to make a film, I was doing this, I did all of this filming and recording all these famous boxers. It was about retired fighters. And I have this thing in my head, and that's all it is. So I'm just saying, you know what? I just can't sit here. I got to start, like, if you're a writer, pick up a pen and write. Like a
Mhm.
writer writes, right? So,
Mhm.
so okay, so I'm trying to make this project, and I got out there and I started filming things, and I have a vision in my head. When I actually sat down with an editor and started putting a timeline down and dropping footage in, and
Right.
I was like, with just a couple of scenes in space, not even
Yeah.
scenes, like an interview here, a soundbite here, just like this is like real. I was
It's
so
so
high. I was like high. I called my mother up. I go, Mama, and I'm a grown man at this time. So when I call my mother up and go, Mama, I'm high, she almost probably had a heart attack. Like, oh no,
yeah.
he relapsed again. That's high. Not what I thought high was. This
Yeah.
is an unbelievable thing. So I'm relating what you're saying. I'm thinking, if everyone should experience something like that. It's that kind
Yeah.
of a
It's so
fabulous magnificence.
It's so true. And I can't tell you the amount of times, like, we touched a little bit on it before, but growing up, I was not a straight A student at all. Like, I worked really hard, but I was always that kid that ADHD. The teacher always wanted to glue my butt to the seat, and then I found this thing that I was really good at, and I could put all of my focus into. And I always say, a lot of times, at least from my experience, I'm sure some people's experience are different, but a lot of the kids that I went to school with that went down a path that wasn't the best for them were the kids that always
That was a very diplomatic way of saying it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Wasn't the very best path
it was
to
the
go
kids
down.
that, yeah. The ones like, yeah.
I know them.
Those kids were always the ones that I always felt like were special, right? And they were good at something else, not your typical straight A student. But what saved me was the fact that I realized it at a really young age, what I was good at.
Yeah.
And I think being able to focus on that and being like, oh, this is what makes me high. This is what gets me to feeling better. Whereas other kids, probably didn't have that opportunity, whether it wasn't because they didn't have as much of a supportive family as I did. My family was so supportive.
Yeah.
And I just had a really good base around me. And I got to realize that at a really young age. But you're 100% right. You always search for that high in life. So I think like being able to find that in this was what saved me 100%.
I can tell you something, Holly, especially after meeting with you already, that you inspired me. I had just, right before we met the last time, I had interviewed a young guy, Patrick Godfrey. Yeah. And this guy, I'm just so impressed with him and what he stands for and just how he conducts his business and all he's accomplished at such a young age. And just, I see, my experience in life is that there's a dial. And with any one of us, we have this dial. And if you tweak that dial 1 degree, either way, mm-hmm. everything changes dramatically. Yep. So mm-hmm. there's not much that separates true success and accomplishment from what many would judge and deem as failure or, whatever. Just, sometimes it's little splits of minute details that right. change, so much, And some people just don't get to live their dream. Like right. circumstances happen and it just doesn't make anybody any more or less. But when I see somebody with the kind of talent, passion and conviction to go for what they want, I just think it's just always great to see when youth is not wasted on the young.
Yeah.
That used to be something that always stayed with me. Youth is wasted on the young. When I see it not being, somebody that seems to be the exception to a rule that can see a little bit clearer what many don't really comprehend yet. And it's usually due to some level of trauma, and trauma not being a bad thing, just a thing.
Right.
Something
right.
to shake you up and just kind of, make you and help drive you somewhere. I think often that's a derivative in there.
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's so funny you say that, like that saying, youth is wasted on the young. When you're young, it's the most influential time of your life,
the
right?
Development, right.
You have, which we talk about our inner child in Safe and Sound, where, you talked about how you feel like trauma, what we call trauma, can propel someone into almost being successful, right? Or something, because they have this fire under them. And they've been through so much, mm-hmm. but it all relates back to, your childhood, because ultimately you're born with a blank page, right? And it's what we experience in life and what we go through that forms us.
But that's not easy to see. Like, especially right. when you're dealing with adolescence and all the distractions and, and for you, having ADD on top of everything, how do you focus? So for you, like, it's ADD. What's the number one symptom of ADD? The inability to focus. Yeah, it's up there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but that goes out. You can throw that whole theory out the window when it comes to you, feeling at home within this
Yeah.
process of your, your theater and your whole acting, and get just like finding yourself in that process.
I was not one in school to focus, like at all. Like I was doodling. I was like the best artist in town, drawing my little hearts and my flowers on my. No, but I always say you get more out of someone when you encourage them, not reprimand them. And the teachers
That's
who,
not the theory in Catholic school.
yeah, right, right, yeah. I definitely was a person who, if a teacher told me to sit down, or I sucked at this, or it wasn't good enough, I would completely shut down. And I was at the point where, like, oh, okay, I've heard this my whole life. I don't care. And it was those teachers who, took time with me and said, this is the way you need to do it. It's just a different way of
Yeah,
learning. And
that's a difference maker, isn't it?
right, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
it completely flipped, like, two different worlds.
Yep.
And I was lucky enough to find that teacher right around the time I booked my first real professional, like, Broadway gig when I was 12. She saw how passionate I was for performing, and she tried to incorporate the two together, right? So she would have me, like, read plays or write stories, and just encourage me in the way that I needed to be encouraged, because up until that point I just,
Yeah.
you're not good enough, you're not this, you're failing this, and that is so hard. Like, you're a child. That's the middle school is like, it's the hardest time for so many kids.
This is like the Good Witch in the Wizard of Oz that kind of found you, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, which is it sounds so remarkable. But there's also another one of these sayings that for kids too, is when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and I'm saying that now to you because it seems to me, based on what you're saying, that you were ready. Like, you have to be like, whether you knew it or not, when the teacher appeared, you were ready to go. Like, when you got somebody to click with you,
For
you
sure.
you got in lockstep and you worked, and so the flower blossoms.
100, yep, 100%. And that's, I always say opportunities will always come to you every single day, and it's your job to be open, because I could have easily took that scenario and shut it down. I could have said, you're, the number, like, 20,000 reading teacher I've had. I've done this for hours and months and years, and nothing has happened. I could have easily shut down, but it was the way she went about things. So that was something too so important why we went with Lady Gaga's foundation, because, words of kindness can change someone's entire perspective and in someone's entire life. And it did for me.
Yeah.
She didn't reprimand me or tell me I wasn't good enough. She completely changed the way she went about teaching me.
But she helped you embrace this because she came with you. Like, it's not like you got this, we got this. Like, she's with
Right.
you in this thing. So that's
That,
what a comfort that is, right?
yeah, exactly. I think back and I'm like, to all the people who said I would never be able to be where I am, or I probably would call some teachers now I had, and I'd be like, oh, I wrote a musical. They'd probably still laugh on the phone, because never in my wildest dreams would I think I would write a 87 page script, of just dialogue and
Send them a
music.
playbill anonymously and just see,
I know. Oh yeah, seriously. We did that today too. We got to design the front of the playbill, which was pretty cool.
It is cool. Every one of those things, like, you know what I like about you, your excitement. You're taking the time to appreciate it, because a lot of times you're so busy and caught up in the process that there is no time to smell the roses,
For sure.
And
And
so at least if you can get that little kind of objective,
Yeah. Definitely.
appreciation, it's pretty cool.
I do have to give credit to my partner in crime, Lizzie, who's the music director of this. she'll always tell me, like, we'll be in the middle of rehearsal and she'll stop me for a second. She'll be like, we're doing this. Like,
Yeah.
this is
Yep.
happening. Like, let's take a moment. And she always is really grounding for me. So she was flying here from London, because she just recently moved to White Plains. So we're like getting into the nitty gritty and really focusing on our career paths and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But she had a quarantine and all of that. So tomorrow I finally get to, spend time with her and see her face to face. It's going to be pretty incredible. And we're getting into like tech week and all of this stuff. So I'm excited.
Let me tell you something that I don't know if you realize this, but when I had that mishap last time we spoke, and then we wound up arranging for today. Today happens to be the 1 year anniversary of the passing of a mentor of mine, who's a woman who, Tao, I told you about her. Well, she died 1 year ago today, and it's just ironic because I got to get her book. In fact, I'm going to say this here, that I'm going to get you her book because this is a story that you need to really engulf, because she is such an amazing, I mean, what she accomplished and her I used to call her a gentle warrior, because when you look at it, she's this quaint little, like, adorable old lady, right?
Yeah.
But let me tell you something.
Fierce.
Fierce in the kindest, gentlest way. Everywhere she got in life was because people told her no.
Yeah.
And you tell her no, that means, I mean, and then the stories go on, and she's traveled the world 1,000,000 times over, and she really lived the most full life of anybody I've known, like, who I've known personally anyway, for sure. I mean, just, so yeah, and I think just as a young girl, to be able to appreciate what a woman did, and basically on her own for the longest time, and just the confidence and trust, like trusting in herself and
Sure.
the universe. It's
important thing, right?
Well, easy said than done. I mean, the concept is great, yeah, but who really does it?
Amazing.
I mean,
yeah, definitely easier said than done.
I shared a story today, and I went to take her class one day. When I walked in, she goes, "You're going to do a headstand today."
Yeah, you're like,
I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not." She goes, "Oh yes, you are." "Oh no, I'm not." She goes, "Why not?" I go, "Because it's not that important. It's just like I come here, to be in this energy and just to take a class and start my day, and that's enough for me. Like, I'm not trying to prove any, So, but really, what I'm doing is I'm just ducking. Like, my ego is saying that I can't do a headstand, and in a room full of women, I don't want to look like a moron.
Right.
So anyway, so we're going back and forth, and finally, she relents. She goes, "Next time you come back, you're going to do it." And I go, I got out of there. Phew.
Yeah.
I come back a couple of weeks later, and this is, by the way, White Plains, Hartsdale, which is right next to White Plains.
Yep.
So she goes, when I came back 2 weeks later, she goes, "You're going to do it today." I was shocked that at 99 years old, she could remember 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm impressed, you know what I mean? But that's who I'm dealing with. So she's going, I go, "I'm not going to do it. It's just, no." Yeah. She goes, "Why not?" She goes, I'll help you. I go, "No, you won't help me." She goes, "Why not?" I go, "Because if I fall on you, it's a homicide." I mean, she's this quaint little, I got enough shame in my life. I don't need to be the one that fell on Tao and injured or worse. I got enough. I mean, I don't know. It's not important. So she goes, I'll go first. She bangs out a headstand. I'm like, now, because she got to my ego. So now am I going to sit there in front of people and say, yes, a 99-year-old lady's going to school me?
Right.
Like, and so you know what? So I did it. And and it was no big deal. I mean, it wasn't like, it was just in my head. I didn't want to be embarrassed, a male ego, that's.
Yeah.
And my point of saying was she knew how to talk to anybody, male, female, no matter what you were, she could talk to you, and she could say, forget limitations that's in your head, forget boundaries, forget I can't do it. People are telling me I can't do it, that's why I did so much.
Right.
But it was just her way of getting in and getting me to do it. A really simple, and we laughed about that forever since that day.
Yeah.
That was always a thing. But that's a beautiful thing to be able to do and to show to people. That's what you're doing now, Holly, by
Yeah.
doing this project and following your dream all the way through.
Yeah.
Like that example that I just gave is like a metaphor for exactly what you're doing, or vice versa.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's definitely cool when you hear it that way.
Because it's a
Yeah,
universal message you're giving. You're not giving it just to young girls or young. It's like to
for
kids,
sure.
to adults, everybody. Understand what's going on here. There's a
Yeah,
problem out here. Communicate with each other, help
exactly.
each other, love each other,
Yeah.
and we can get through this stuff. Don't
Yeah.
let that mistake happen that you can't fix.
Exactly.
Vital
Exactly.
message.
It's a moment. It's a moment, and you have to get past that moment.
You have to get through that. Yeah.
And yeah, I had an amazing acting instructor at Circle in the Square, where I studied, Alan Langdon, who changed my life hands down. Like, when I think of someone in my life who changed my life, he's the first person that comes to mind.
Yep.
And he would often say, fear, shame, and ignorance are the three things that will hold you back. And that couldn't have been
In no
more
particular order.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, like more true. And I did a study on like the seven deadly sins, and there's a book called Dr. Faustus, and it talks deep into the seven deadly sins. And it's so funny to see how these things, which I think one is like pride and ego, one is ignorance or wrath, and all of these things. And when I was getting into school, I had a problem in scene work connecting to wrath or like cursing, because I'm not like, my nature growing up was never like
I'm not
vulgar.
violent and vulgar.
So
I'm
yeah,
about compassion. You fucking
wrath.
idiot.
Yeah. So, but it was so important for me because, as a human and playing characters as an actor, humans are multifaceted. So obviously wrath is going to be in there. Anger is going to be in there. So I
Yes.
did a study on these seven deadly sins, and I tapped into this wrath, and it's so funny because identifying all of these sins, right, in me, in terms of like my pride or my ego or
Yeah.
you know what's the other one, envy and wrath, and identifying this stuff in me, it makes me a better actress, first of all, because I can connect to more
Yes.
characters and people, and understand what these characters are going through. But identifying it in me has healed me in ways that I can't even express. I healed so much of my anger with my dyslexia from when I was a child doing this
Wow.
study. And I was able to really, really tap into those parts and heal them, which ultimately comes from my inner child. Yeah, it just was really eye-opening for me. So, and I always encourage people now to read, because the more you read, the more you know. Look, the dyslexic girl who couldn't read is telling you to read.
We're laughing, but it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Who can understand the value of reading more than you do?
Yeah. Oh,
Think about it, right? Especially with the frustration you had
some
with
friends
it.
of my whole life. My mom's a writer. My mom worked for Billboard magazine. That was her job. She was a writer, and she had a daughter who couldn't read. So the minute, we all talk about the moment that I sat down at the table, and the first book I read straight through was Dr. Seuss's Feet, Feet, Feet. I will always remember this because she looked at me from across the table, and I'll never forget the look on her face when I first read through that book. And, they say you realize what something means to you when it's gone, but when you don't have it and you get it, that's when you really realize, the value of something. And I'm getting emotional. It just, it's something that I am so grateful for, and I'm so thankful for my family because I would not be here without them. You know, they were my grounding and my support, and I definitely wouldn't have took this path if I didn't have them, for sure.
I don't know your mom. I never met your mom, but I do know your dad, and your dad is as good as it gets. He's a good man.
Yeah.
So that's great that to hear you speak, you know, with such reverence. That's great.
Yeah, I mean they you know, my mom would come to all of like the school meetings. I'd be there, I'd advocate for myself too, and they've never ever missed one performance, like ever. Even when I'm doing like tons of shows of the same show, one of them is there.
Yeah, well,
So,
damn, they got to be so proud of you. I mean, come on. You're doing it.
yeah.
I mean, there's like, you know, like I have a friend of mine who's a writer and another guy that's overcome stuff that, I mean, I wouldn't wish on people. I mean, I don't want to use the word hate, but if I hate, I wouldn't wish this kind of life and upbringing on them,
Yeah.
right? And he's overcome so much. He said there's two kinds of writers: ones who write
Yeah.
and ones who talk about being writers. You know,
Yeah.
and if you're in your passion and your craft and you're doing what you're doing, you know, I don't see you as a girl that's going to go halfway. You're going to go
Yeah.
in there and you're going to put your, you know, nose to the grindstone and get and compete and do the
For,
best you can do. You're going
for
to
sure.
succeed. It's just a matter of when. You
Thank
know,
you. Yeah.
it's destined.
I don't like halfway going. Like I will literally claw my way till
Well,
I'm
to be where
till
you
I'm
are at the young, you know, point in your life, I mean, that's obvious. That doesn't even have to be. That's understood. So, Safe and Sound is the name of this project.
yep, safe and sound.
The
Safe,
music, Safe and Sound, the musical.
yes, the musical.
And tell us about how it's going to be introduced to an audience.
Yeah. So, um, so the festival for Front Row Fringe Festival, they have about I think 12 shows, I believe, in the festival this year, all virtually. It's the weekend of the 12th and the 13th of March. Um, all ticket sale information will be on our website, so people can go right to our website, which is safeandsoundmusical.com. There will be, yeah, there will be a page um, that you can purchase tickets, and that should be up probably March 1st because we don't actually get our exact time and day
Right.
until like later in February. Um, and it will be a Zoom link. So it's going to be over Zoom. It's going to be broadcasting.
So these are going to be live virtual performances.
So yeah, these are going to be all live virtual performances. So it should be pretty interesting. The only thing we can't do live is the music. So like the songs and stuff, because when people sing at the same time over Zoom and everything, the timing doesn't line
Oh,
up.
so this is going to be done from multiple locations as well?
So yeah, so it's all
Oh, you
done.
got your work cut out for you. How are you doing this?
Yeah, let me tell you. It's been an experience.
Wow.
We have an amazing choreographer as well. So we're doing choreography, but it's all Zoom choreography. So it's about like this far from the camera. Everything is very like in the frame. Um, we have people angled to people, so we put them on certain sides. It's pretty crazy. It's definitely a different art in itself, and it's also the first time I'm directing a project this big. So it's interesting with directing it from Zoom as well.
What an experience, though, huh?
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty cool. Definitely one for the books.
Wow. So, and this is going to happen in March?
Yeah. Yep. March. I believe it's going to be March 13th. Like
13th.
I said, I would on the website to confirm everything. Probably March 1st. But it's looking like it's going to air March 13th.
I don't know what to say other than like, just congratulations for everything that you've done to get this far. And I wish you nothing but the highest success for this show. I want everybody out there, if you can find the time and the bucks to help support this cause. I mean, this is what it's all about. This is who, like, it's your generation. Like, we're depending on you. We need you to
Yeah.
carry this torch. There's so much that we have to recover from because of this
Yeah,
COVID and because of just everything that's going on right now.
for
That
sure.
thank God youth is not wasted on the young because we
Yeah.
need the youth right now to just
Yeah.
carry so
And
much of what's ahead.
theater as well, theater and art and an escape, right? An escape
What
from
if somebody's an Academy Award winning actress, right? Like,
right,
sure, she's got a reputation and credentials and all that, right? But is she going to
right.
be able to do the kind of stuff that you guys are doing online? Like,
Yeah.
you're creating a whole new genre in a sense. This
That
is really wild.
definitely. I mean, yeah, it goes along with that statement goes along with so many things that I've seen in my life. You know, I've seen some of the most amazing actors perform in these tiny, tiny little intimate places in Manhattan. These actors who can easily like go right up against Leonardo DiCaprio and Bradley Cooper and all of these amazing actors, but they're doing art in a different way
Yeah.
and not in the mainstream type of way. And yeah, it's definitely this new generation is creating something brand new and fresh,
Hmm.
and I think it's pretty cool. Definitely, it's pretty
And
cool.
my generation, you know what I've seen? I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen
Yeah,
lonely times I could not find a friend.
yeah.
Holly Block, I'm proud of you. I'm really glad that you're pursuing your dream and doing it so well. You know,
Thanks,
and there's so much more to your story that we didn't get into now,
for sure.
and I really look forward to sitting down with you again in person
Yeah,
and doing this, and you telling your story
yeah,
like we already did because it's just, I mean, every young girl, you know, not just girls either, by the way, but because
yeah,
your story
yeah,
itself
yeah.
is transcendent as far as it's not limited to a gender or anything. It's
Sure.
somebody and adversity and somebody that overcame the adversity before them and didn't, you know, kind of just prevail, but you know, you're thriving right now. Like you're really, really doing well, and it's great to see. And I think every young kid with a dream needs to see this. Needs
Yeah.
to, you know, hear from people like you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I always look to people who, you know, Henry Winkler actually always inspired me.
Hey.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The Fonz. He always inspired me as a young girl, and I bumped
Why?
into why? So he's actually dyslexic as well, and he wrote a series of books from his perspective as a young boy, um, and I loved like everything he's ever done. I was always a fan of, and just he was always the type of actor who, you know, who was constantly working, and he seemed to be like living a pretty happy life. And I always just looked up to that. And I actually had the opportunity of bumping into him on the street of Manhattan, and you know, I was just like, oh my god, I was probably I had to say I was maybe like 13, and I was like, I'm such a fan, like I'm such a big fan. And my mom was like, you know, we started talking a little bit, and he was like, oh, thank you so much. And I was like, just so you know, I'm dyslexic and I look up to you so much. And he bent down and he looked me in my eye and he said, just know school is the law. Once you get out, you're gonna fly like the wind. And that, in my darkest and most scared times, that one line got
That wow, 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 wow.
yeah. And I don't know if he knows that. Probably not, but he doesn't know how much that affected me. And yeah, I always just looked up to him, and one kind moment of love can change your whole life, and it did. I always thought about that
Yes,
in what he said.
yes.
And
He's also done
yeah,
brilliant work directing and behind the scenes stuff like this. So much. Talk about always working. I mean,
ooh,
this guy's like never not working.
every
And
aspect
you
of it.
never, and if you're not paying attention in credits and just to what he's doing, you don't even know that he had anything. And now look at
Exactly.
his body of work; it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it really is. He's always creating, and I feel like he's always creating something that is um is fulfilling for him as well. It's not just like he's
yeah,
doing do it. Because there is always a difference. Sometimes you get jobs just to help you pay your bills, and then
yep.
you do jobs that fulfill you as an artist. And I feel like he's always definitely doing that. So
Well, there was a singer, Peter Gabriel. You ever hear Peter Gabriel?
yeah, I have.
He was talking about the record business to somebody one time, and I remember this quote saying, talking about record labels, he says, you got to
Yeah.
give them what they want so that you can do what you want.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of headshots, like photos, headshots when I think of this, because we were doing our playbill this week, like we're getting everything sorted with bios and headshots. And I don't ever really like my headshots because they tell you to do it very like neutral, so you can not be typecasted, right? Um, but they never feel like me. So I was doing the playbill and I was like, you know what? This is my project. I can put whatever picture I want. So I was like looking through all my funny like
There
headshot
you go.
pictures.
There you go,
And
little Tao. There you go, little
yeah,
Tao.
exactly. So it's so funny because, you know, they want you a certain way and you play the game until you don't have to anymore. So, and
Yeah.
right now I don't have to.
I lived out in LA for years too, and there's so many like unwritten rules, and that you have to do this and you have to do
Right.
that, and so many people that just yeah, like
Yeah.
some people play the game and other people just work. Like
Yeah.
just like here, this is my headshot. If I'm not supposed to get this, I'm not gonna. If I'm gonna,
Exactly.
if it comes
Whenever
down to
I
the
walk,
headshot, then what is that really saying?
exactly. And whenever I walk into an audition and I'm fully and completely myself, that is always when I book the part. Like always, because I'm not
Yeah,
pretending to be someone else. I'm
yeah,
not pretending to be a different person. I'm genuinely me, and I'm gonna show you what I got. And if I'm not good for the part, then I'm not good for the part.
right.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm like in charge of everything here. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna wear this outfit. I'm gonna put sparkles on my eyes. I'm gonna. So it's pretty fun.
Let me just
Thank
ask you
you.
before we get going here is who's out there now like as far as you as a writer, who inspires you? Who do you look up to? You just really like what they're about?
Hillary Burton Morgan. I love her. So I used to watch her on a show called One Tree Hill when I was younger. Um, and I was a fan of her as an actress. And she actually recently, not too long ago, wrote a book. Um, and it's kind of like a series of diaries. It's called the Rural Diaries. And she talks about how she was I connect to it so much because she talks about how, she was working um, and parts of her life were missing because she's, inspired and fulfilled by the people around her and family. And that's what kind of grounds her and inspires her every day. And she's just such a go-getter. Stefan is very much into producing, directing. She's a really wonderful advocate for women. And yeah, she's just super inspiring. She's also super into poetry and all of that stuff, which I love. As a lyricist, I think Taylor Swift is one of the best lyricists of our generation, of this younger generation.
Why do you say that?
Something she does that most people struggle with and can't do is tell. I loved country music because country music tells a story, right? And it kind of gives you that theater aspect because in theater we get songs of telling a story. And she has taken that and she's brought it into pop music. And I read one of her books as well when the Reputation album came out. And in that album, she had poems, and it's almost like she takes these poems and she puts them into song. So she uses imagery in ways that a lot of artists don't know how to use anymore. She paints you that perfect picture. So I think she definitely is so inspiring to me in the way that she words things and then puts it into song.
And a lot of these albums that she does are based on broken relationships and if firsthand accounts of actual her truth. And that kind
Yeah,
of putting that, especially another girl, she's young and she's been doing this for a while and very successful at it too. To be that vulnerable in the public eye, it takes a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. I think the three women artists that pop in mind that are like now like the trendy pop is Taylor Swift, Miley Cyrus, and Lady Gaga. They are the three women that completely wear their heart on their sleeve, and that's those are the women that are in the public eye. I mean, there's a lot of amazing actresses in the Broadway industry that probably aren't like Betsy Wolf, and
Hmm.
she's amazing, and Jessie Mueller, and all of them. But um, something that I think is so original with Taylor is the way that she transitioned as well. Because she started so young, we got to see her grow up, and a lot of her songs are about heartbreak, but she also has a lot of songs, like she wrote this beautiful song about her mother on her Lover album, and just the rawness of that song, it felt like she was speaking to her.
Yeah.
And um, that's so inspiring to me, and I will always try to come from that place of just creating art through connecting to people, and
You know what I heard that was really profound? We spoke was of Dana Fuchs, right?
yeah,
She's a really deep girl. I mean, and so uber talented, you know. And when she started getting into music, she met um, her musical partner John. He when he was saying like, "What do you listen to?" When they first met, like, "What do you listen to?" You know, she's listening to all this classic rock stuff, and he goes, "Did you ever think about let's take those songs from who they listened to,
yeah,
like who taught them, like let's go
right,
back, like so because
yeah,
so much of this it always like there's nothing original anymore. Like even Taylor Swift's not original.
right,
Nobody's original anymore. Like
right,
I don't know if it
right,
ever was. It just keeps getting, it's we take what we already hear. Like there's nothing I could say that's even original. Like everything I
yeah,
say it's based on stuff I've heard. Like every so, but it's original, I guess, in that moment. So, but
yep,
where did it come from? And that's
yeah,
so it what that taught her was how to go back and to
yeah,
almost to as far back as you can go
true,
within reason
yep,
to the infancy of that song or
yeah,
that
yep,
genre, whatever, and just learn more
totally,
about it so that you can embrace and embody that much more of it. And it was just like, I was like, I never thought of things in those terms. But I
yeah,
used to like hearing, oh, I love that song. Oh, did you know it was really written like 30 years before that and so and so?
yeah.
Willie
You
Nelson wrote that? You're like, what?
Yeah. You know who's great at that? Bethany Joy Lenz. I don't know if you know her. She's an actress. She also sings, but she does a lot of like covers of old timey songs, and she's very into the roots of things and bringing them into the now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean it's always knowledge is power. So
But as a
digging.
singer, do you like, is there any women out there that you go like, wow, just they floor you, just like, holy shit,
Yeah.
she's great.
There's lots. I'm always like I'm always in awe of I'm always in awe of Lady Gaga. I'm so typical.
No, but she's,
I'm always
she's great.
I, she's a woman who can sing jazz, who can sing classical, who can sing pop, who can sing rock. Like she knows her pipes, and she's done the work, and
She's a
yeah,
pro. She's really
always in
good.
awe.
Yep.
Yeah, I really always am. Like when she sang the national anthem for the inauguration, I was sitting there and I literally like started tearing up
I
because
know.
yes, we've been through so much with this country, but also she just takes my breath away, and just um yeah, I'm always in awe whenever I see her. I'm a huge fangirl of Gaga for sure.
Hmm. What about Nora Jones?
Yeah, oh, she's so good too. Classic jazz, jazzy, jazzy
Have
voice.
you ever heard of a girl called Rhiannon Giddens?
Hmm. I don't think so. Why? I would love her probably.
I don't know. I don't know what what your taste is in music, but she is
I
so
li-
talented.
I'm a music mutt. I
I've
love
been
everything.
obsessed with her, just her style. She sings like slave songs that they were singing, and she goes
Yeah.
back into black music. Like,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
I found her watching a Bob Dylan special about you know who T-Bone Burnett is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um. Yeah.
a producer,
Yeah. I was
right?
gonna say. Okay.
So they found a box of Garth Hudson used to play in this group called the Band, and the Band had a house up in Woodstock called the Big Pink, and that's
Uh
when
huh.
Bob Dylan lived there, and they were his backup band, the Band, but
Yeah.
they had enough of their own stuff, so they wound up being as probably as big.
Yeah.
But anyway, they found a box of lyrics that Bob Dylan had written, a whole like a box, and Garth Hudson had saved them, and but there's no music to them. It's just like I guess it's just poetry at this point, right?
Right.
So
Right.
T Bone goes like, "Wow, what if I just get some like he got Elvis Costello, he got Jim Jones, is it Jim James,
Yeah.
um, the kid from My Morning Jacket. It was the kid from Dawes. Who was the other guy? A bunch of these really young hip artists, and her and Rhiannon Giddens. And she took a couple of these songs and she did one song, Lost by the River. And I mean, I just listened to the song and she just sings. It's so heartfelt. She's so in it.
Her
I was like,
soul went.
whoa. And then I
Yeah.
started like, who is this girl? How do you never hear of her?
Hmm.
You don't get in an ensemble like that if you don't already have a
For
body
sure.
of work, So
For
like I
sure.
started, and just the more I've seen her like probably a dozen times since then. That was about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. I don't even know, maybe 8 years ago, something like that. She's just every time she comes around, it's just like wow, and she's just
Amazing.
so talented. She does all this really cool artsy stuff. She did a thing where she sang, and she had another girl in the back tap dancing. It's different. It's artsy. It's creative. There's
Yeah.
just
Box
and
out of the.
true to the roots. Like she plays banjo. She comes out barefoot and she's just natural. She's just like she's real.
Yeah.
Like, and that's kind of lost on so many. Now somebody like Gaga, now
Hmm.
she'll come out with these like she looked like a space Martian in these outlandish outfits, but you know what? She's as real as this girl I'm talking about. She's
Right.
real. It's just a different. It's all different approaches to things like that, but there's so much diversity and there's just so much art out there. There's so much talent out there. There's so much. It's just great.
Yeah. I think when you finally say, you know what, like I'm gonna be who I am, that's when you find your power for sure. There's a lot of times where, I was told, well, don't wear that outfit or take that makeup off for this show. It doesn't really work. And the minute that I was me and I didn't care is the minute that success started coming my way. So, um, yeah, I think it's always so powerful to watch someone be themselves on stage too. Like it's entrancing to see someone be so raw. So,
New York City is suffering so much right now that only people like yourself, that actual artists, can understand. Well, I can't say only artists because I feel the loss too, just because there's so many. This is such a vibrant city when it comes to culture. You
yeah.
know that there's so much great music. There's so many venues that are like so nostalgic, so great places to
Mhm.
be. Whether they're theaters, concert halls,
Mhm.
all forms of art all over this place. There's graffiti artists here that are.
For sure.
Have you ever seen Banksy? By the way, you ever meet Banksy? I'm trying to. I want
No.
Banksy to just paint me an index card somewhere, so I can
Yeah.
retire.
So cool. I
Yeah.
love it.
So when the things get back going there, this is going to be great. When New York, the vibrancy comes
Yeah.
back into
My
the
God, it's
culture.
the best day ever. Best day ever. I
It,
want to
but
be there when things start. When the
Yeah.
first Broadway show gets back up, I want to be in the middle of Times Square.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
You're
It'd
right.
be an amazing
Well,
feeling.
hopefully you will be. Hopefully you'll be in the middle of the stage and you'll be on there with them
Yeah,
somehow, right?
exactly. I'll be doing my hair and makeup.
Well, listen, Holly, I want to thank you very much for your time and you're just so open. You're so good. This is great. I want to wish you nothing but success with the show. Where can people find it one more time so everybody can
Yep.
find and follow up on what you're doing? Safe
Yep.
and Sound, the
Yep. Safe
musical.
and Sound Musical. Yep. safeandsoundmusical.com. They could go right to our website to buy tickets, to follow us and get updates. You could also go to Instagram and follow us at safeandsoundmusical.com and Facebook, safeandsoundmusical.com. So all there. That's how you
Great.
guys get updated. Yeah.
Great. Well, listen, thanks again. And like I say, in the very near future, once you get settled in, we'll sit
Yeah.
down and you'll tell your story.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
The pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Have a good